Howdy, it's Mike again. This is going to be an interesting one. It's probably going to be a train wreck, but I've really wanted to do a non-stock related podcast episode. And so that's what this is going to be. So if you're looking for stock related stuff, this isn't the one for you, and that's totally fine. I have no problem if you just don't want to watch this one. I have 10 others I would suggest, especially with where we are in the market right now. I would focus on the 21 day, which was episode 9, as well as the follow through day, which was episode 10. If you've already watched those, then the next thing I would do is I would go back to the how to build a model book episode, and then do the model book ones that we did, like the Apple and the Google, and the Cisco. And I think you'll get a ton out of those from the stock related stuff. So again, just if you if you're not into a non-stock related thing, I totally get it. Just don't write any negative review, that like, oh, you didn't want this. Just don't watch it. So with that said, I do read every review that's or comments, whatever they're called, in YouTube, and I appreciate all of them, and thank you for the kind words. And yeah, they mean a lot, and I do my best to respond to all of those. So just a little bit of a background, if this is your first one. I'm doing this series or this podcast for however long that makes sense, and it's just way of for a few things. One, for me to give back to the trading community, anything that I can. Like, hopefully, you get something out of this, and it helps your trading, even if it doesn't make you more money or doesn't keep you from losing less money. Maybe you trade with a little bit more knowledge and confidence, or at least knowing another side of how things go. And really, I hope it helps your trading a lot. I mean, that's the whole point. But so that's the one thing, is to really just provide something, because at work at IBD, I'm on video several times throughout the week. We have a thing called IBD Live, which is a paid thing. I don't get paid anymore if more people subscribe. So, I'm not promoting any of this stuff, but I truly believe that it's such a great resource to learn in real time. I'm on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, unless I'm away for some reason, and it's the most fun I have, during the day, frankly, because there's 4 of us on the panel, and we talk about the markets from about 10 minutes before the open, for like about 90 minutes, give or take, and it's a ton of it's interaction, tons of fun, but there is a cost involved. And then on Tuesdays, well, there's going to be some changes there. I'll talk about that next week. But on Tuesdays, I do well, I'll just talk about it now. On the Swing Trader, I'm going to switch that to monthly, instead of we were doing it every week. But frankly, I'm falling into some bad habits, again, of being a workaholic and not getting to the gym the way I want to. I mean, I do my walks in the morning, but I'm just having too long of days at work, and I got to focus on my health. So I'm going to switch that to once a month for now. We might go to once a quarter, or switch it back to once a week. We'll see. But that's every Tuesday. That's for free. That's on YouTube. And then every Friday, I love doing the IBD stock market today with Allie, good friend of mine. If she's tied up or away, I do it with my good buddy Justin, and those are free and on YouTube and Spotify and stuff. And so, if you're into the stock stuff and you want free stuff, it's there. If I think IBD Live is ridiculously underpriced, and again, I don't get paid a dime for it, so I'm not trying to push it, but it is. I think it's a ton of great info, and we've got a lot of great guests and stuff that come on. We get special guests every Friday. So I'm not trying to promote things. Truly, I'm not, but I'm just letting you know that, like, if this isn't the episode for you, I totally get it. So the other reason, besides trying to help people, is, a lot of things have happened that makes you really realize how short life can be. And so I just wanted to have something, documented, that is around for my kids. And then, my kids are 23 right now. And so maybe in about 8 years or so, they start having kids. I'm guessing. And, if I'm not around, I want something for the grandkids. And they're like, oh, you know, what was this whole Webby guy, and what did he learn, and maybe they'll be into trading, because my kids right now aren't really into trading. And so I wanted something to document in case they did ever learn how to want to learn how to trade in a big way. I mean, my son's a great poker player, and has traded crypto and some stocks and stuff, and he has really good instincts, but I don't think that desire is there right now. So I wanted a place to have these for them, for my family, and just to know what daddy did, and grandpa. And so, yeah, that's what these are for. And I figured, I was going to just record them and just put them on my computer. But I was like, wow, if I do that, like the likelihood of a computer being around, whenever, or even knowing the password to get into it. So I figured, oh, YouTube, that makes sense. I'll just put them out there, and then they'll have them. So hopefully I'm watching this with them one day, but if not, that's what they're here for. So with that, all these episodes are really, talking about the different things I invented, or walking through, like the IPO base. I did one on that. I suggest people really watch that, not just for the IPO base, but for the thought process of making something your own. When there's a problem in the market, you solve it. And that's what I did with the IPO base. Or I did one on the composite rating, how and why I built the composite rating. I think that's really worth watching. What else did I do? I don't know. I've got a bunch of things that I plan. Oh, the 21 day and the follow through day. Of course, I think I already said that. Those are the ones I would start with. But I'm going to do a bunch of, I've created a bunch of stuff over the years, and frankly, I've forgotten a lot of things I've created. And the other reason why I'm doing this is no one knows what I've created, because I used to just create stuff at the firm, and lots of times people would just think Bill did it or whatever, and I just kept my mouth shut, my head down, and that was fine with me. But you do want to have something around that says what you've done and what so it's good to have. So anyways, just for the family and all. So this one is going to be about fear. And so every once in a while, I'm going to do one of these non-stock related episodes about something and about a topic that is important to me. And this is about fear, because fear really controlled my life for a long time, man. And I put a tweet out asking about what people feared. And I was really surprised with the answers. Like, some of them were exactly what I fear, and then some other things were very interesting. That was like, wow, I don't fear that, but I totally get that. It just, I didn't get a chance to respond to everyone, but I read all of them, and yeah, so we're all in the same boat, man. We all have fear. They might be different fear. And so, look, I'm not an expert on fear. I'm not a psychology, major, or psychologist or psychiatrist or anything. I mean, that's going to be what my son does, but that's not me. So I'm just going to share with you what I've learned and observed from the fear, and I'm going to be opening up a lot on here. Probably not the smartest thing to do, but you know what? If it helps people, I'm going to put it out there, because that's my gig, is trying to help folks. So we're going to talk about different fear and what I've learned from fear. And the first thing is, in my opinion, is there's a difference between fear and worry. I'm a worry wart by nature, and I've got a story I'm going to get into about that. And as a worry is, in my opinion, is about something that is, realistic. Like, you buy a stock breaking out in a crappy market environment, you should worry that breakout is going to fail. Like, there's, that's not really fear. It's more of a worry, because, let's say the market's underneath the 200 day, underneath the 50 day, underneath the 21 day, ring any bells, and you're buying a breakout. Well, the odds are that breakout is not going to work. So you should be worried that it's not going to work. But that's not really a fear. A fear is something that kind of keeps you up at night and really, like, gets your body going, and some sometimes in some really bad ways. And so I was thinking, what is my biggest fears? Well, I knew what my biggest fear was, and that's what the focus of today is going to be on. But there were other fears that I had throughout my life, and based on the reactions, I think a lot of people had these same ones. And one is fear of heights. Still have it, but I'm going to talk about how I've dealt with that. The fear of heights, being claustrophobic, and I think that's kind of common and normal. I'll talk about that. Um, and the fear of sharks. Thanks, Jaws. Like, I saw Jaws as a kid. I don't know how in the world I saw that because I was pretty sheltered with what we saw. But that stayed with me forever. Like that, and I've got that's going to be a good story. That's I learned a lot from that. But the most important one in this is something I think is very common, is public speaking, and talking, and just doing this or talking in front of a group. um I mean, that ruled my life for the longest time until something happened with Bill, and that changed my life. And so you probably can guess, but this is going to be the long rambling episode of the one time I told Bill no. So, with that said, let's get into the smaller things of fear, and let's see what we can all learn about those. And I might forget some of the stories I was thinking about, like, what am I going to talk about? And I was going to write stuff down, but I never, like plan stuff. I just ramble, and what comes to mind comes to mind. So, let's start off with the first one. So, fear of sharks, and from Jaws. And I was really pleasantly surprised how many people were so fearful of sharks, too, because of Jaws. And that's something I had my whole life from that. I mean, it was a real fear. And what you don't know is, I was a distance swimmer in my previous life, from, I don't know, I guess it probably started around 7 or 8, and then all the way through until my junior year of college. I was on the swim team at college and everything. That was my life. That was my gig. Um, and I blew out my shoulder, and it was just not really anything I could easily recover from. Still hurts today. Every single day it hurts. In fact, I have to use like a trackball instead of a mouse, and I've had to since the first ones were invented, because even the movement with the mouse irritates my shoulder. But that's because I was hardcore about swimming, man. It was like the no pain, no gain. I took that to next level. Like seriously, I was a distance swimmer. So anyone who is a distance runner or biker or a swimmer, I did a few little triathlons, nothing big, but hated running, but loved biking. I did some bike races too, but swimming was my gig. And but anyways, when you're a distance anything, it's no longer a body thing; it's a mental thing, just like in the market. And so it was really good training for me, for the stock market. And anyone who, if you have kids, I would seriously suggest getting them into some sort of sports, so they can build good habits of discipline. And that's what it was with me with swimming. I mean, I was um, the pool in the pool at 5:15, in the water at 5:15 every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We had double practices on Saturday. We had practices on Sunday. And then, of course, we had the evening practices Monday through Friday. And that was like 2 hours in the pool, plus like in half an hour to an hour of dry land, like weight room or whatever. I don't know. I had no life. I just swam, but that was cool. It kept me out of trouble. But mentally, when you're doing distance, you're really having to think, and you're fighting yourself, just like in the market. So I would highly suggest, even if you don't have kids, just for yourself, like pick up a hobby that is mentally challenging, that you have to push through, and you have to be very disciplined. Like, with a swimmer, you have to know, like, okay, this is the pace that I'm going to start a mile race, was one of my races. And you've got to start off at a certain pace. In the middle of it, you do a certain thing, and then you finish up a certain way. And there's technique involved. And it's just like just like trading. But anyways, enough of that. But the point was, I was scared of sharks. So when you're in a pool, like, that there's not going to be a shark in there. But I'm going to share with you. I was looking online for this pool that I swam at, and they've since shut it down. Let me see. I put some pictures of it into a. Where did I put that? Let's see. No, it's not there. Hold on. I'm going to try pausing this, and let's hopefully that this doesn't. Oh, there it is. Okay, I don't have to pause it. I'm going to share. Clearly, I need some like video help. This is why like I watch other podcasts that like are real podcasts, and I'm like, wow, mine sucks. But what are you going to do? It's just me. Okay, so we are going to do share with you this. So this is the place where I swam, and they used to record. It was the Industry Hills in California, and they since torn down this pool, which is very sad. But they would do a bunch of movies at this pool. It was, a large pool, as you can tell. And let me just see if I can blow that up a little bit more so you can see, like this, large pool here. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because it was so large and we were always having funding issues on the team. They would rent this out to movie sets like Back to School, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But any movies, and so they would record things like Friday the 13th there, and they would make the whole place look like a swamp or like an ocean, and they would put all this black tarp on the bottom and have all these scary things around, because when we were done swimming at whatever it was, 7:30 or something at night, they would then they would start they're filming their night scenes of these really spooky like horror movies and stuff. So you're swimming along and you're seeing all this stuff, and your mind plays tricks on you. But what my mind would play, I wasn't alone, but my mind would go towards a shark. But this is the difference, is that was an irrational fear. So you can fight that. You're like, okay, I'm in a pool. This isn't a James Bond movie. There's absolutely no way to have a shark here. So, you just move on. So that's the first thing, is distinguish between, are you worrying about something that you should be? That's not fear. That is your body or your mind's way of protecting you. It's like you go to a gas station late at night and you see some thugs out there, and you're like, well, you should be worried because I've had that happen to me twice in my life, where I was almost mugged at a gas station. Once out here in LA, or out here in Austin during the storm, and then back when I was 17 in Chino. But anyways, you don't forget those things, but your mind tells you, you know what, get back in the car and drive away, and that's what I did in both cases right before they could get me. But so there's worrying, right? Which you should worry, and then there's irrational fear, like thinking that there's a shark in your bathtub or in your swimming pool is stupid. So your mind can tell you, okay, don't worry about that. So that's the first thing. But I also surfed a little in college and stuff. And so when you're out in the ocean, it's a legitimate thing. And I did. I went through the Huntington Beach lifeguard training thing, and went through the whole thing. It was tons of fun. One of the most fun things I did in my life, and grueling. It was, I don't remember, it was a few weeks or something like that of of really intense work. And at the end, I went in there the whole time I was swimming. I either had my contacts, I would have my contacts in, go in for the interview at the end, and wear my glasses. And they're like, well, what's your eyesight? And I told them what it was. And they're like, you can't be a lifeguard here, right? And like, cause I could have lied, I told my buddy before I went in about what was, he's like, you can't tell him how bad your eyes are, because my eyes are really bad. Can't tell him. And I couldn't lie. I just can't lie, it's not in me. And so I told them knowing, and they just looked at me like, dude, you shouldn't have said that. And so I went through the whole program. But what was fun about it is we got to, jump off. They would take the boats and they would be like hauling ass, in the ocean, and then have you jump off the back as if you were going to go save people, or we'd have to jump off the pier. Well, some people would look at it as had to. I looked at it as got to, as, jump off the pier into the water, and you had to do it a certain way, or you'd like break your legs because you'd have to do it and then like, go at this angle. And that goes back to, I'll circle back to that because that's my fear of heights and everything, but that was fun because it was pushing me past that fear of heights. But the really scariest thing, spookiest, was we'd have to swim around the pier in a race, not just swim leisurely. Like, everyone's racing because they want to make the cut to be the lifeguard. Think back to like Baywatch or whatever way back in the day. So, make a long story short, those were the things that would freak me out because it was long enough that it allows your mind to work, and then you're also thinking, well, there could be a shark here, and I'm swimming out there, and there's a bunch of us, and sharks, like it's like a bunch of seals out there, like we're like chumming essentially, but nothing ever happened to any of us, and so fast forward, the following year, I was surfing down at this place called Salt Creek in Dana Point. And if anyone who knows about that place, it's a local hangout. Like, the locals, I mean, it was hardcore. Like, you don't mess with their area, which was on the south side of it at the time, where that was the best break. And so and there is a point to all of this. There truly is. So there was the break was on the south side, and that's where all the best people and all the locals would be. And you did not drop in on someone's wave if you weren't a local, or it wasn't going to go well. So I would always go to the north side where no one would want to go because the break was terrible, but I wasn't that good. And so it didn't matter to me. And I was just more enjoying the ocean and everything. So I was off by myself. So it was normal for me to be not in a pack, like just kind of a lone wolf. In the back of my mind, I always thought, oh, the whole shark thing, but it was a mental game because I was fearful, but I was also thinking it's unrealistic. Like, what are the odds? You always hear that, like someone is worried to fly in a plane, and it's someone says, oh, you're more likely to die on the way to the airport than on the plane and all that stuff. So you have all those things in the back of your mind. Is like, no one ever really gets eaten by a shark. So you're playing through that, which is a good thing. And that's one of the points, is like when you're fearful of something, that as long as it's within reason, push yourself. Like, don't say, oh, okay, I'm not going to go surf because I'm scared of this thing that might not happen. Now, if you don't know how to swim, don't go in the ocean because that's not too smart. Like you can drown easily, or, if you don't have a real knowledge of how the ocean works and rip currents and everything, like you really shouldn't be out there, not alone, at least. So anyways, so I'm there, Salt Creek, I'm probably 20, in great shape, which helped in this situation. And all of a sudden I've got terrible eyesight, right? And all of a sudden I notice that everyone's in, right? I look, what would have been? Yeah, I would look to my right, and there's no one there. And this was a good day out there, and everyone's inside from what I could tell on the shore, and people are like yelling, but I was pretty far out, and it was like they're yelling, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden I see some boats. And during this whole time, my mind had been this normal loop where I kept on seeing this big thing underneath me, big giant thing, like giant, like not some small little, shark, big one, right? Massive. But I was just like, okay, I used to worry when I was in the pool, and, seeing all this scary stuff because they're going to do, Friday the 13th movie. And I'm just like telling myself, like, no, Mike, you're silly. You're just seeing things. And I kept on seeing it, kept on seeing it. And then I see the boat, and the boat's approaching me, and they're yelling at me like, go in, go in, go in, and everyone, I'm the only fool in the water at this time. And then I'm like, oh, wow, we've got a problem. Like the fear became real. This was no longer a worry. It was a fear. Like, shit, man. Like, I'm going to get eaten and this is not going to be pleasant. And this is going to be like Jaws 7 or whatever. Like, this is not going to be good. So I remember thinking, okay, how am I going to get in? Like, if I try for a wave and catch it, there's very strong possibility that I just fall off, right? And then I don't have my board attached to me, and then I'm going to be like, in a world of pain. So I'm like, okay, let me treat my surfboard like it's a boogie board and try to get in as quickly as possible. So if you've surfed or a boogie board, you know what I'm talking about. So, I'm paddling, as fast as I can, but I'm also trying to not kick too much because I don't want to attract more attention, because that's not a thing that you want to do around sharks, or at least that's what I thought. And, the boat's like, go in, on the horn. And so I'm going in, I'm just thinking like, this is it. I've been worried about this my whole life. It's like do or die time, Mike. Like, don't screw this up. And all this intense pressure on me is like, hold on to that board for dear life, paddle, catch something, go in, and I just kept doing that. And it was like, and remember, I'm a like competitive swimmer. Like, that's the hardest I ever swam. Like, they always say like, if a bear is running after you, don't worry about your speed. Just make sure that you're faster than your buddy next to you. That's where I had no buddy next to me, so it was just me. So then I go inshore and I just didn't talk to anyone. I was so shooken up, and I walked up this long walkway up to the top. If anyone's ever gone there, and they used to have like a little golf cart that would drive you up because it was so. And I just went up to my car. I freaked the fuck out. Sorry, I freaked out, man. It was. But what was great about it is it got me over that fear. It's like, okay, well, you're in this situation. You got put in this, bad situation, and it's okay. And the reality is, sharks don't want to eat people. They want to eat seals. They want to eat, so. But in a wetsuit, you do look like a seal, So, but I'm still scared of them in the water. But it allows you to kind of block it out, and you just think, okay, if I was in that same situation, all would be good. So that's the moral of that one is, when you have a fear, really define, is it a worry or is it a fear? And again, the worry is legitimate, and listen to your body, listen to your mind, and act accordingly. Just like, said, like, let's say you bought a breakout and came in, went up, now it's coming back in, and now it's back underneath your pivot and you're down 2% on it. Be fearful that 2% is going to turn into 6%, is going to turn into 10%, and so on. So, and then, man, if there's a shark in the water, man, battle like hell. That's the other thing. So then the next thing I was talking about was, and let's just share that picture again of the pool. And so here was, again, this was, if you've never seen this movie, it's it's pretty funny. It's 80s type of humor, so it might be a little slow for some of you guys, but I always like watching it more so because I'm like, oh, that's where I used to, swim, or that's where I used to whatever. And so here's Rodney up on, he does this big dive in the show. And anyways, so the point was, this 10-meter platform was there, and normally there would be lane lines in here, so we couldn't swim, or you couldn't dive, because the divers had different times that they practiced than us, because you obviously can't dive with safely with lane lines in there. So every once in a while, when the lane lines were out, or we were swimming in the other pool, the little baby, what we call the baby pool, over there, it was only like 4 feet deep, that anyone could, after practice, go jump off of those. And I was so scared of heights that I was like, this is a way to get over this. And so I'd go up to the 10 meter, I think it was 10 meter, is what it's called, the top one. And I'd jump off, and it never got me over my fear of heights, but mentally it put me in the um, on the offense, because here was this thing that I was scared of, that then I wanted to get over that fear, which made it then fast forward to when I was doing the lifeguard training, and lots of people were really scared to jump off this pier in this very shallow water, and you had to jump on it in a certain way right when the wave was breaking, and then you had to put your feet out at this angle, because otherwise if you went straight down, then you're breaking your legs, and then you're done, so so I never would have been able to do that. I would have failed at that, so the moral of that story is, to really just fight through your fears if they're irrational. Oh, it's my dad. I got to take this. I'm going to pause this. Hopefully, shoot, how do I pause this again? What the stop? All right. I'm back. That was my perfect parents giving me a call. That was always nice to talk to them. So sorry, I don't even remember what I was talking about, but I'm assuming it was, we were talking about the, what were we talking about? I guess we were talking about jumping off the pier and everything, and how setting up, doing that earlier in life, like trying to fight through my fear while I was at the pool. Growing up, and just fighting that fear of heights, and jumping off of that 10-meter platform as much as often as I could. It never got easier. Like, I'd like to say, yeah, like got easier as I was jumping off of them, but at least then it didn't. But then when I went to the lifeguard training and jumped into the ocean, it certainly, if I hadn't done that, I would have freaked out. So fast forward until I was, before I joined William O'Neill and Company in '97, I was working at a mutual fund company in downtown LA. And some of us, they were like, oh, talking about going skydiving. And, at first I was like, I'm not skydiving. I'm so scared to, like, we were up on what were we on? Like the 51st floor or 39th floor, or something like it. We were way up there, and just even looking out in downtown LA, we were on 5th and Flower, if you're familiar with that area. And there's 2 twin towers there. And so anyways, just even looking out would freak me out. So they were going to do some skydiving. So I'm like, you know what better way to get over my fear than going skydiving? So I did the tandem jump, because frankly, I was too broke to do the pay to jump just by yourself. It wasn't so much that I was more scared to jump by myself. I was scared both ways, but I didn't have the money, man. I just didn't. And so, anyways, I did the tandem jump. And so you just practice for a few hours, watch some videos and stuff, and then you're getting ready to jump out the plane. And so we're up there in this plane, this tiny little plane, and I think it was over Lake Elsinore, and the plane is like falling apart, like literally, like I'm up there, and they're like rivets like falling out of the thing, like these people. Like, and now I'm worried. I'm like, okay, if they can't even keep their plane together, as a piece of junk, I hope their parachutes are working. So that's going through my head, and then I'm getting ready to, you get strapped on with the person and everything, and you're getting ready to the edge, and then all of a sudden I've got my glasses on, but I was, my eyesight so bad that I had these really expensive glasses, and I couldn't afford to have a backup pair. So I was literally, I'm like, oh shit, I guess I should have left my glasses down in my car and just been blind up here, because what if my glasses fall off, and it was take like two weeks to get my prescription filled, back in the day, that I'm like, I can't even drive, like I can't do anything, like what am I going to do? And I'm like an hour and a half from my apartment, and so I'm there at the edge, and I'm freaking out because all this wind is going up and my glasses are starting to fall off. And the guy must have been, that I was strapped to, must have been so used to people being scared and like, like not wanting to go. But no, I was just trying to get my glasses adjusted. And he just pushes me out. And so the whole time I'm falling, like it, I'm not worried about falling out of the plane. I'm worried about losing my glasses. I'm like, I can't work, I can't drive, I can't do anything. And I can't afford a new pair. They were like, I don't know, $500 or something. And that was a lot of money at the time. It's a lot of money now, but it was a lot of money at the time. And so for the initial free fall, I'm not worried about anything. And there's a full circle thing that will happen in a bit, and this will make a little more sense. And so I'm falling, and then I'm not even worried. And then they pull the ripcord and going down. And it's so wonderful. I'm like, what have I been scared of? Like this is just beautiful. And overcoming my fear just empowered me so much that it was like you can do anything. Now I'll just tell you, I'm still scared of heights, but I know that I can jump off a 10-meter board. I can jump off a pier. I can jump out of a plane if I need to. Like I can fight it. So that's kind of the moral of this story is it's okay to be fearful of something, even a rational fear. Like heights are, people die and get injured all the time from heights. So you have to have a respect of it. And, but you can fight it. And then it will put you, when you're in the offense, in the driver's seat, so to speak, you look at it differently. Okay, so now we've gone over Jaws, we've gone over my heights, and now we're going to tackle the big one, and the fear of public speaking. And at the end, we'll get into the claustrophobia. That's kind of funny. So this fear of public speaking. I mean, I know everyone, not everyone, but most people have a fear of public speaking, and it's pretty significant. Mine was like off the charts, like from when I was a kid, like elementary school, when they would go around and you have to, like, the teacher would be like, okay, Johnny, you stand up and you read, a sentence or two or something like that. I developed this thing early on. No one told me to do it. And I'm a very honest kid and person, or was a very honest kid, and I'm very, very too honest of a dude. Trust me, sometimes it hurts to be honest, but it is what it is. So I would have this thing where when the teacher would, be going through the class, I would just happen to have to go to the bathroom at the exact right time. It would be like 1.5 people in front of me and 1.5 desks in front of me. And I would time it where it wasn't so obvious, at least to me as a little kid, that, me saying, hey, Miss whoever, can I go to the bathroom? And it would leave, and then I'd come back in and give it just enough time to make sure it passed me up. And so that was my gig. I'm sure the teachers probably talked about it and realized, oh, little Mikey is, a scaredy cat to talk, and they just let it go, that no one forced me. And that was through junior high. That was elementary school, junior high. So I was never forcing myself. So unlike this pushing myself, and this is a reason why I talked about, still surfing, even though I was scared of sharks or jumping off the diving board. I let this build up, and this is very important, that it made the fear worse and worse. Every time I would get up and avoid speaking, it would make that fear bigger and bigger and bigger in my mind. And this translated, this went through to junior high, to high school. And one time in high school, I didn't get away with it. And it was my Spanish 3 teacher, and I can't speak a lick of Spanish. And my better half is Puerto Rican. She's her original language was Spanish, so she's perfect. But I don't understand anything. I just like hola, and that's about it. But my Spanish 3 teacher, and granted, this is important, this guy was a white dude and with red hair, like white, and maybe he was Irish or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking that he was Irish because St. Patrick's Day in a couple of days. But so he's a stickler, and he won't let me get away with it this one day, because he's seen me do this thing, and he's like, no, no, Mike, you know, it's your turn. And so I get up, and like, so here, this is the first time I've had to public speak in Spanish, something I'm terrible at to this day. And I stand up, and I was probably literally shaking. I'm probably like 15 shades of red, and I start reading this thing in Spanish, and he must have either felt sorry for me. He must have felt sorry for me. And he just goes, I was have to read like this much in the book, and I made it through like a sentence or something. And he goes, sit down, gringo. It was like the happiest thing I've ever heard was sit down, gringo, from a white dude. Like from a white dude to call me a gringo. And I was like, I was just thrilled, and he never called on me again. So thank you. I don't remember his name, but anyway, so then I got away with it, and then it made it even bigger with me because it was a terrible experience. And there is a point to all of this. So now fast forward, I'm working at the mutual fund company, and I do have to train. I end up moving my way up to being a supervisor of like, I don't know, 7 to 10 people, and so I'd have to talk to them, but I was all friends with them, and so it was still a bit stressful, but it wasn't public speaking, right? And maybe it's because we'd all be sitting down when we're talking, so I don't know, but it wasn't fearful. But then fast forward, I get the gig with Bill, and just since people don't know me and don't know my story, just one second here. Sorry about that. So, I know most people don't know my backstory. So I read Bill's book in 1995, the end of 1995, and while I was at the mutual fund company, and I just realized Bill's book, How to Make Money in Stocks, was just perfect. It was home for me, and I just had to go work for this guy. Fast forward February 3rd, 1997, I finally get a job at his in his research department. And my goal at that point, and I'm going to do one of these on goals, and I think that's going to be I think it's going to be great and very helpful for people. So February 97, my goal was to become a PM for him, which happened. Now I look at it as relatively quickly, very quickly, because the end of 1999, I became a PM for him, and that's really fast, man. That's really fast. But anyway, so I wanted more than anything. Like, it was it. There was no plan B. I burned all the bridges, so to speak. Like, but not in a bad way. But like, this was it. It was the only thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to do another thing in life. I only wanted to be a PM for my idol, Bill O'Neill. And I get there, right? And then everything works out. The journey was hell, like hell in a bucket, man. It was hell. The hardest thing I've never seen, or I've yet to hear anyone have a harder time getting something than the struggles that I went through. Not even remotely, and I can't tell all the stories, but let me just tell you, it was not easy. That was very, 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 very difficult. Nothing was handed to me, and every roadblock was put in front of me. But I became a PM for him. Then he dug what I was doing, and he asked for me to come down to his office, which was like, oh my God, like, get to share an office with him. I never even thought that was even a possibility. So I'm sharing an office with him, and then, I'm just on cloud nine, and I go to New York to meet some clients, some institutional clients, because this was not a retail outfit. This was William O'Neill was our institutional branch where I worked, and now IBD is retail. And so it was with, big clients, the Fifth LAs of the world, and a bunch of, they were down in Boston, but these people I was meeting up with, I'm not going to mention their names, were a hedge fund up in New York. and go meet with them for the day and talk to their analysts and stuff, and walking through my take on the market, my take on the stocks, and just in my own little way. Like, not, these were all like MBAs from top schools, super smart guys, and everything. Everyone with huge egos, and here's just a little Webby just telling it the way it is as politely as possible. And they were all wet on everything. They might have been super smart, but they didn't know anything about how the market really worked. I'm just telling you. And the CEO was always their CEO was always kind of in the background, kind of listening, and I wasn't trying to show off or anything. It was just, I knew what I knew. And so I was going through, and fast forward to that evening, we're up on a roof top bar, and the CEO, all the other employees that were there, everyone was trying to get a job outside of Bill's place, because Bill was notorious for not paying you anything. Like, he would pay you as little as possible and would pay you less if he could get away with it. So everyone was trying to get a gig elsewhere, to move up in life. But I was like working for my idol. So everyone's, like trying to, become work for this big hedge fund. And the CEO or president, whatever it was, the dude in charge, kind of sees me just hanging out. I drank back in those days, and just having a drink, and comes up to me and starts talking. He's like very impressed with everything, and said I helped him a lot, and blah blah blah, and would I come work for them? And I always thought, working in New York City, like, how cool would that be? Because I watched Wall Street Week, or not Wall Street Week. I watched that too, but Wall Street the movie, the original one. What did that come out in '87, I think? And oh my God, that changed my life. Like, it changed my life. I'll do a whole one on that. Wow, there's some really good stories about that. But so I always wanted to, be in New York. But anyway, so this guy's talking to me, and we're talking about the market and things, and he really likes what he hears. Just telling it the way it is, and not trying to have an ego or anything. It is what it is, and I was really in the zone. And he's like, "Look, what do you make?" And I'm like, I can't really talk about it, but like, in that position, I tell him, and how much money you're running for Bill, and he's like, "Look," he starts throwing numbers at me. He's like, "I want you to come work for us. What'll it take?" And he starts going through these numbers, and I just keep on like smiling. I'm like, thank you, but no, thank you. I mean, he thinks I'm playing hardball, but like, I'm not. Like, it's just like, I'm working for my idol. I'm getting to, I've worked my ass off and gone through hell and back to get this job, and now I've just gotten this job, and I'm working with this guy, and going to create, not just trade, but create a bunch of cool products and things. And um, anyways, he's going back and forth on this stuff, and finally, I stop him at some point. He's like, "Okay, look, 4 times your salary and 20 times the amount of money you're running." And for those of you who aren't in the industry, the amount of money, your assets under management is everything. It's how much money are you running, because you get a percentage of profits off of that. So like, even 2x or even 50% more of what you're running is a big deal, translates into a big deal. 20x. Oh, crack myself up a bit. And he's like, 20x. And I just said, "Look," because I was thinking I was embarrassing him, and I didn't want to. I was a 20 something year old, forget what year it was. It would have been 2000. And anyways, so I'm just trying to be polite, and I'm just saying, "Look, it's not anything personal." I just said, "I'm getting to work for what the equivalent of Jesse Livermore, who is, like, if you don't know who Jesse Livermore is, go out and get Reminiscence of a Stock Operator and read it over and over and over again, and get How to Trade in Stocks by Jesse Livermore, and read it over and over again. Like, that's as good as it gets. Like, everything I've really learned about the market, I think on some level can go back to that. He's kind of like the Robert Johnson of the world, if you know who in blues, who Robert Johnson is, and I'll talk about that some other time. But anyways, so I'm like, look, I'm working for my idol. It'd be like giving if you had a chance to go back in time and work with Jesse Livermore, you wouldn't give that up for any amount of money. And he just kind of looked at me because there's this New York guy, super wealthy, like just like he's handing me this thing, um, that is just like the golden ticket. He's like, and I could have asked for pretty much whatever I wanted, I think, because I stopped him at 4x salary and 20 times assets under management. I'm like, I'm just sorry, man. I'm working for my idol. It's priceless. I cannot pass it up. Now, there's a reason for this story because it'll tell you how big of this fear it was. So that was that, and went on, and he tried to contact me, um, and it was just, it was the same. He knew, and it moved on. But anyways, so fast forward, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years or so, and and Bill was not an easy dude to work for, man. You had to be a workhorse, and we didn't have to. I was a workhorse, and that's what the harder I worked, the more he expected, and that was fine. So fast forward, and Bill would always have do seminars. I mean, this is probably even before I was born. He would do seminars, and that was his comfort zone. He would go out and talk about how to trade with people, and that's how he would get clients from the institutional side. And then eventually, when he started IBD, he would do that, and that's how he would sell the newspaper and his whole system, IBD methodology. And so he would always do that. And then anyone who has given a workshop all day realizes it's really hard to talk for that long of a time. So you kind of need to tag team. And so he would have a different PM do it with him, and someone who was that he really respected. And so the first time I saw a workshop was in 1997. Shortly after I started at O'Neill, and that was one of the benefits of being in the research department, is you could go see Bill O'Neill do these workshops when he was in town, assuming they had some empty seats in the back that you could go to. So I went to it, and it was him and David Ryan, and it was just a great workshop. It was like I was just like, oh, like my jaw was just dropping, because Bill never came into the research department, maybe like twice during the whole time I was in there, and David never came in. So it was the only time I literally ever saw him, because he left in, I think, 98. And so, and it was like, oh, that's what I want to be, but I'm like, I want to be that, except for I want to be David, but I don't want to have to talk in front of people, because there's just like, that shit's not going to happen. I can't do that. But I want to, be the protege. And so, which is what ended up happening. But, so it's, this is 1997, and I do that. And what was really weird, it always bothered me. One of the things that bothered me, one of the many, was, I was in the research department, and so they'd have people go, because Bill really believed that his employees should learn the system so they would do a better job. Like, even if you're just entering data into the computer database, if you understood what you were looking at, you would be less likely to make a mistake. You'd be more likely to start investing and making money and then stay around. Like, it was really big deal for him. Like, it was very important that his employees learned the system and traded, because he wanted to help people, and he thought, from a selfish standpoint, he wanted better quality work from his employees. And so he felt that, if they knew how to trade, that would help out. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. So what would happen is they would have researchers go, and they would leave during lunch, because you have to like sign in, and no one wanted to go, because it was all day Saturday, and they wanted to go do whatever, I don't know, drink or hang out or go to the beach or whatever. It's like, and so I would beg. Everyone had to go to one, and people would like beg to get out of it. I would go in to the VP and like beg to go to the workshops. They're like, oh, she's like, oh, well, if a slot opens up. But they would have all these other people who I would actively hear, there was like 40 of us in the research department. They didn't want to go and they wanted to get out of it. And here I'm like, please, can I go to another workshop? And they wouldn't let me go, which just becomes funny later. And they just would not let me go. I begged and pleaded, and they're like, no, you already went to one mic, but then I would find out that all these people would go sign in and at most stay until lunch and then leave. It really pissed me off. But, so fast forward, so this is, I don't know, maybe 2004 or something. And, I could be off on the year, and Bill, comes to me. He's like, Mark, the current person doesn't, wants to stop doing the workshops. And, I would, because he would have different PMs that he would do. And, it it was an honor to do it, but it was really stupid financially for yourself. Because you got to remember, if you go and do a workshop and teach a workshop, you've got to prep for a long time for that workshop, because you've got to be on your game and you've got to have all your slides right. You've got to have it, like everything. And then there's sort of travel and stuff, and you're getting paid to trade. You're getting paid of, a percentage of your profits, and that's the money that's flowing into you. And Bill didn't believe in paying his guys to speak. So you're getting hurt because your performance is going to be less. And again, the assets under management, like you're on a team of 10 people, as whoever has the best performance gets the most money to run. So you're at a disadvantage there, because you're going to, versus your peers, not do as well because you're going to be distracted. And on top of that, he didn't believe in getting paid. And whenever anyone would ask him, that would speak at a workshop, hey, can we get paid for this? His thing was, you should be paying me. Oh, Bill. Oh my God, it's so funny. You should pay me. He didn't force it, but and we didn't have to. But you should pay me to do these workshops, because it means if you're going to have to know this stuff so well, you're going to be a better trader, and so you're going to make money eventually. I mean, that guy could sell ice to an Eskimo. And he said that with a straight face too, and he believed, I think he believed it, and so anyways, so people would get burned out from it, because it was just the honor thing would go by the wayside pretty quickly when you're traveling around, and you're on a plane and the stocks you're in are plummeting. And this is back before you could trade on planes and stuff like that. So it was financially was not a smart thing to do. But he said, I really want you to start doing the workshops with me. And I was honored beyond belief, like here, I saw David at one time, and I used to beg to go to these workshops. And now he was going to have me be his sidekick, his protege, and his person that he was going to do these workshops with. And you would split the time. Like Bill would go up and he would talk for whatever, an hour. And then I would go up and talk for an hour, and that whole thing. And then we'd go up together, at the end. And even during lunch, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but even during lunch, we'd have to sit, we get to sit kind of like if you go to a wedding and the wedding people up top. And so we would, I'll just tell this story while I'm thinking of it. And we would get questions from the audience, and they would be on little index cards, and it would just be like the two of us on the podium, and with little microphones. And I'd never really get to eat, because we'd have to do this Q&A, and it's kind of weird. You're sitting up there, and up above it. I didn't like that part. But so anyways, we get the stack of questions. And this was Bill's way of having fun, is he would take the questions, he would take all the easy ones, all the easy questions, and he would give me all the hard ones and say, have fun, so to speak. That was, I like that. I like that. I always loved having the hardest questions. Like that was mentally challenging for me. And enjoyed it, frankly, but it was fun. And it was also nice to know that he knew that I could handle the hardest questions. Like that was really cool. But I fast forwarded too much. So he asks me, Mike, I really want, so and so, doesn't want to do the workshops after XYZ date. And, I really, I wanted you to do them before. And, I really, really want you to do them. And I said, this is the only time I ever told him no. I'm like, because I kind of saw it coming, and because I knew that he wanted me to do it beforehand when he had this other person start doing them. And I made it clear to everyone, I'm like, don't have Bill ask me, I avoided it. And then, when you're not around, and then he asked the other person, and they were doing it for a year or so. And, so I got out of that one, and then he really wanted to do it with me, which that was his guy, like that made sense. Um, and he asked me, and I'm like, Bill, like, and I never said no. I never said no to anyone, really. I said, Bill, I'm sorry, I really can't do it. And this is what I told him. I said, Bill, I'm so scared of talking in public. I said, I would rather be in charge of cleaning the toilets in the building. It was a 2-story building, with a toothbrush, from now on, than speaking. I don't know why I said that to him, but that's what, and he just kind of looked, he was baffled. And I think he was just beyond shocked. And then he just kind of walked away, which is something that he would do at times. He would just walk away. And I'm like, whew, whew, I got through that. It was just like, the Spanish teacher again, like, sit down, gringo. So I like got away from that. And then, like, fast forward, I don't even know how long it was, like maybe a month. He comes into the office, because we weren't sharing an office at the time. And he comes into the office. He's like, Mike, well, so you're going to be not, you didn't ask me this time. He told me. So we're going to be doing a workshop together, or from now on. And our first one is going to be in Dallas on such and such date. And then turned around and walked out. Like, he didn't give me a chance to say no. So I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Now remember, like, and this is why I told the story about the guy offering me, 4 times my salary, and 20 times assets under management. Um, so here's this, I worked all this time, and like, what am I going to do? Like, this is the biggest fear. And the only way that I was going to get pushed in front of it, um, and I skipped one thing. And when I told them the thing about, I would do the, clean the toilets with a toothbrush, and I think that is something I had heard from, my dad was in the Marines, and I think it must have been something from like basic training or something that they would have the guys. I don't know where, maybe I got that from a movie or something, but said that to him. And then he said, Mike, well, everything backwards and forwards, I don't know where that accent, but what could you be scared of? I'm like, Bill, I'm just scared of talking in front of someone. And he just could not process that. It was like a computer that can't process something. He just couldn't process that thing. And then that's when he went away, and then came back, because he was, what Bill wants, Bill gets. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, I didn't take the offer for all that money. My idol is asking me to do something I always really wanted to do, but was just too scared to do. Right. Okay, I'm going to do this. This is just like jumping off the 10-meter platform. This is just like jumping off the pier. This is like, going skydiving. This is, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay, it's either that or I get a new job. And so I'm like, I wasn't going to do that. So then I said, okay, I need to prepare for everything. And this is the takeaway. And I'm sorry, I'm babbling on a lot, but again, like I said, I wanted something for my kids and grandkids to have. So I appreciate you being patient. And I swear, like, if I knew how to block people on YouTube, I could just see like people saying like, Mike, this was terrible. And I would block you if I knew how, but please don't. It's going to hurt my feelings. If you don't like it, just don't say anything. So anyways, I'm going to do this. And well, it must have been 04, 05, because I was trading Apple. And I remember I just put myself in our studio area, and was just practicing, all day long about like, what was I going to say and what charts was I going to do. And I took it so seriously. That's all I did. So my trading was suffering because I remember trading Apple and just not being locked in the way I would normally be, because all day long during the market, instead of looking at charts, I'm like preparing for this thing for months. And they even had at some point, I can't remember when this was, they brought this professional outfit in to teach me and a couple other people who were going to be teaching some other seminars how to speak. And it was really, yeah, I don't want to say their names, but you would know who they are, like a big time outfit. And they would have me, and we went off site for training for a few days, and they would want me to say, "Hi, my name is Mike Webster." And seriously, they wanted me to do this with my arm and look at every part of the audience. And their whole thing was, you need to connect with this part of the audience and this part, then this part, and go through and say this. And they wanted me to have every word written down. And this wasn't because they knew that I rambled. That was just their philosophy, is that good presentations are really just speeches that were written ahead of time. And I had a colleague who used to do that and do such a great job at it. You would never know that every single word he said was planned out and timed, but he had the ability to do it in such a skillful manner that it seemed like it was off the cuff. It was very, but he would, read his thing, and it was just, I'm like, God, I wish I could do that. But I couldn't even say the first line, like I practiced for hours and hours, and I'm like, that's not me. And then they wanted me to read all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm like, that's not me. Like that's just not how I go. And everything that they were teaching me to do was the opposite. Now maybe that would have made me a good public speaker if I did it the way they did, but I just couldn't do it that way. I had to be more real. It's like, I don't talk like this, so I'm not going to talk like that, and they wanted me to say my full name. I'm like, no, I don't think I've ever said my full name. Like, hi, this is Mike Webster. It just sounded really like arrogant for some reason. I was just like, hi, I'm Mike, like that was my thing, and they hated that. But anyways, so they're teaching me that. I'm trying to get some basic public speaking skills down, and I'm scared to death, just even in a room with just them. They're taping me, and it was a nightmare. And then I think I have it on VHS out in the garage somewhere. I should watch those and maybe put those clips up. But anyways, so now it's like a few months that I'm preparing to go to Dallas to speak with Bill. And so I've got my thing down. I've got every chart, every chart that I'm going to talk about. I know what I'm going to, the points I'm going to hit, but I never would tell it the same way twice, because it would bore me. I would just be like, I would see the chart and I'd be like, okay, I know I want to hit these points, and I would talk about it. And I would know I have this general idea that this was the point I was going to get across. And the hardest thing is we were timed, unlike these things, so that was the tricky part. But so I was prepping for this. I'm scared every day. Like all I can think of is like, all these horrible things are going to happen on stage, and people are going to make fun of me and all this stuff, and I'm not going to be able to talk or whatever. And so I'm getting my thing down. Trading is suffering, the rest of my life is suffering, but I'm just fixated on this. So the takeaway is, if you're going to do something that's fearful, prepare. So prepare for everything that you can prepare for, but there's going to be things that can happen out of the blue that there's no way to prepare for, but you're going to, this is very important, that you're going to do a better job dealing with the panic and the fear if you prepare for anything and everything possible, because no matter what, you're going to get a curveball thrown your way, but you're going to have more confidence. So I was prepping for everything. Then I was like, okay, I need to, I'd read something about how I'm a big Rolling Stones fan, and how Keith Richards would travel with like a backup for his backup. So like he's a telly type of guy. And so like his main Telecaster, he would have a backup for that, which was like the identical thing, and then a backup for that one. So I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense, So I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy, it's only on stage for one day, but I'm going to buy 2 more suits. So I'm going to have 3 suits. So a backup for a backup. And then I'm going to do the same thing for ties. I'm going to do the same thing for shirts. And some of the things I did 3 and 4, like 4 and 5 extras for. Like I even brought like extra shoelaces. I'm not kidding. Like I thought of everything. I'm like, okay, so here's my feet, here's my shoes, okay, like blah blah blah. And so I have this, and I have a garment bag and a big old suitcase filled with stuff. And I'm talking to someone, it's probably Justin, and he's like, well, Mike, aren't you worried about them losing your luggage? And I'm like, what? Losing luggage? I never even contemplated that. That changed everything for me. Changed everything. I'm like, now I went from this comfort zone of 3 suits and 3 pairs of shoes and all this stuff, down to, oh my God, I've got to get everything in a carry-on in this garment bag. So then I had to reduce as many things as possible. I still brought 3 suits, like 5 or 6 shirts, and a boatload of ties and belts and all that stuff, and it fit in this garment bag. But then on the outside of it, I couldn't fit. I could only go with 2 pairs of shoes, I thought, and so the third pair had to go away. So I was putting in these, and there's this point to this, the pairs of shoes in there, and I can't get it to close. So I'm like, my biggest dilemma was, do I bring my brand new, like nice shoes that I bought, or do I bring my old shoes that I used to have at my old job that have been worn in, and like, this is back in the day where you like get your shoes resold and stuff, because you didn't have, I didn't have enough money to buy new shoes. So you would take your work shoes and you take them into a place, and they would actually resole them for you, and it was a lot cheaper than buying new shoes. So I had a pair like that, but they were worn down, and they'd been resold a couple times, and they were floor shines. And so I'm like, what should I do? And I was asking everyone, should I bring the new ones? And they're like, no, you're going to be uncomfortable. You haven't worn those in, bring the old ones. So I'm like, okay, I'll bring the old ones. I'm scared to death. I've got this one pair, but I'm like, okay, Mike, this goes to the worry versus fear. I'm thinking, okay, Mike, you're just worrying, or you're just being, is irrational worry. Like, 1 pair of shoes are fine. 1 suit is fine. Maybe a second shoe. Like, you don't need 7 shirts or whatever. But this was my way of dealing with this lifelong fear that I had. Like fear, like it was just panic fear. So, anyways, I go and I practice, and I get there a couple days early because I don't want jet lag. And like, the only downtime I did is I did go to the JFK Museum. I was always a big fan of, or not a big fan. Not that I'm not a big fan of JFK, but I was always interested in the JFK assassination. And it never sat. Even when I was in high school, I wrote something about it in my sophomore year about the Warren Commission and stuff. So I was in on that early. And it wasn't a popular thing, at that point, but, it just didn't, it smelled wrong to me, and now everyone's like, yeah, JFK, of course. But back in the day, it wasn't so much like that. And so I go down to that, and that was cool. But that was my only downtime. The rest of the time, I'm just preparing, and I've got everything laid out. And it's that morning, and Bill is going to be talking before me, and I just want to. I don't want to even go downstairs before I go on, because I don't want to have to talk to anyone. I'm just scared to talk to anyone. So I've got everything, and I don't want to get wrinkled, and I'm re-ironing everything, and I go put on everything. I'm like, okay, it's do or die time, Mike. And I said that to my, it's do or die time, Mike. You got to do this thing, and be a man. And so I go, and I'm like, be a man, and I go put on my shoes, my old floor shines, and my foot goes straight through it. My soles, both of them, fall off of my shoe. And then what had happened is they were stuck in there, and this was Dallas, so it was super hot out, and so the temperature change and everything made the glue from the resoling come apart. And so I've got no shoes. So like my be a man, Mike, and you can do it, like rah speech to myself, all of a sudden goes into massive panic. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It's almost like the shark thing again, where it's like you're out there, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, there's this shark, like, how could that even be? So that I have prepared for everything. I've got backups of my presentation, multiple backups. I've got everything, but I don't have shoes. And I'm like, okay, I only have tennis shoes here. Like, I can't go down with a suit on with tennis shoes. Am I going to go down with just, you know, socks? And I'm like sweating profusely at this point, like just stressed. So I go downstairs to the bellman and, you know, talk to people and plead, you know, with people. And they finally agreed, this one guy, to drive to a local Target, the only place that was open, to buy me some shoes. And so in the meantime, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I bought some super glue and I'm super gluing them, but it's not sticking. So like every couple steps they'd fall off and I'd have to super glue them again. And, you know, I make it down and I'm on the side of the stage and Bill's up there and I've got no shoes. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? And my panic level is not a 10. It's not 11. It is off the freaking charts. You know, like if I was this age, I would have just, my heart attack would have just happened. You know, like, but luckily I was in late 20s or something, whatever it was. Whatever year that, whatever, like 20 years ago, let's say. So, yeah, so in the 30s. So I'm, you know, I'm there, and right before Bill is about to get done, the guy comes and brings me these shoes that he bought at Target, that I had to buy from Target, and they were the most uncomfortable shoes, and they were like half a size too small for me. My feet hurt so bad, but I was so thrilled to just have some shoes. And then boom, I go up on stage. So I'm still in this panic, right? Of I don't have my shoes. And then the panic level goes down because now I have these shoes and now I can go on. So it's kind of just like when I was jumping out of the plane, like my panic of being up 10,000 feet or whatever we were, like going over, I was just focused on my glasses, you know, those glasses falling off. Now I was just focused on my shoes. So I didn't, all that fear that I had, it had switched to this other thing, and now it had kind of gone away. And I went up on stage, and it was a really good experience. And afterwards, everyone was like, "Oh, you look so relaxed and everything." Inside, I was just like so happy that I had shoes on. You know, as simple as just shoes. So it was a way. You know, that's officially the longest way of telling someone that, you know, you can have this lifelong fear, but the sooner you tackle it, the smaller that fear gets. Now, I would still get scared every time there would be a workshop, but I would have a ritual and I would prepare everything. And I never read a speech. I never read a sentence. It was always, I would prepare a whole binder and I would rebind it with all my notes and everything in there, have it up on the podium and never look at it once. Not one time. Everything was off the cuff. And that was just my style, you know, but I had a time. So like with this, I don't have a time. So like I was like, okay, I need to be off stage by this much, so you can back into what you have to tell, which is the freedom of this. I can just, you know, ramble on. You guys could listen at 2 times speed or just not watch. And so anyways, after that, the fear was always still there, but I would always prepare, you know, and that was this ritual that I would have. I would have, you know, multiples of everything, but then, you know, I would dial it back from like 7 shirts to just 3 shirts, you know, per day. And, you know, and it was doing this, and that would go on for a long time. And I remember, I don't know, maybe a year or so into doing this stuff, I asked Bill, you know, it was at a level 4 workshop in Santa Monica. I said, it was before I was going to get on stage. And I'm like, Bill, do you ever get over the fear of being on stage? And he just looked at me baffled and be like, what are you talking about? Like he just could not process like that there would be this fear, you know, of it. And because we would have been on stage at that point for countless times together, and no one ever said I looked scared, but I was scared to death, you know, but whatever. I was just, you know, doing my thing, you know, and so anyways, so fast forward from there. So that was, you know, the one time I said no to Bill, and didn't get away with it. And the only time I ever said no, before or after. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm so thankful to him for forcing me to do that, even for selfish reasons for himself, that, you know, because I would still have this fear, you know, to today. And that would have been a terrible, terrible thing. Now, Yeah, I always still get nervous, but it's not like the fear level. Now, the fear did come back recently, a few years ago, and I'm going to talk about that. And this is something I'm really going to open up about in hopes that it's gone back and forth if I should open up about this or not. But, I think it might help some people. So I'm going to talk about something very personal. But before we get into that, talk about another thing about Bill not having fear, more uplifting story first, that, this is going back in time, that Bill was the first person who found out that, I was going to be having kids or twins. We had gone through the whole artificial thing. Anyone who's gone through that knows it's a, big challenge. And this was in, 2000, 2001 timeframe, and been trying to have kids. And I wasn't really ready at the time mentally, because I thought I needed to be further in my career. I don't know. I just, wasn't ready. But they were the best things that ever happened to me. And, but anyways, so I'm in the office with him, and I get this phone call, and every phone calls at work, personal phone calls. I get this phone call. I take it outside, and I come back, and he's like, "You look like you just saw a ghost." And I'm like, and you're not supposed to tell people this, but we had been trying for a long time. And I'm like, "Well, Bill, I just found out we're pregnant." And he's like, "Congratulations," And I'm like, "But it's twins," you know. And that, my level of fear of, like, we're in a bear market. This is 2000 to 2002. Bear market is like 1929, and Bill didn't pay much. And so here and I'm driving up from Orange County at the time, because my the lady I was married to was uh, worked down there, and I was trying to be nice by doing the commute, 60 miles each way in traffic. And I'm like worrying about I'm like, "Bill, I'm scared." I opened up to him, like, because he's like, "You look like you saw a ghost." I'm like, "I'm scared to death." And he's like, "What are you scared about? Kids, everyone has kids." I'm like, "Well, we're in a bear market, and and I live down there." He's like, "Well, I'm like, and I don't want to be not away, I don't want to be away from my kids, And he's like, "Well, you need to move up here." And I'm like, "Okay," trying to think about that, and then how was I going to afford that? Because then all of a sudden we're going to have to go down to from two salaries down to one salary and stuff. And like I said, this was a bear market, and Bill didn't pay much. Some could say school teachers get paid more than what he'd like to pay. And um, so anyways, I'm like, okay, what one, I just don't know what to do. Like, one was going to be a blessing. Two is like, oh my God. And then he proceeds to tell me the nicest story, and something I'll never forget, and trying to ease my mind, which he was not a nurturing dude. And he told me the story about how when he started the firm, and those who don't know, he started, what was it, 62. So he had Certainteed, then he had Chrysler that he bought right after the Cuban Missile Crisis, or right when the Cuban Missile Crisis was ending. And then he put it into Syntex, and that's where he made his fortune. His first fortune was in Syntex, the birth control pill, and the high tide flag, and the big move. And he proceeds to tell me the story in detail about how when he had all that money from that, then he started the company with those proceeds, and a lot of it was for tax reasons. And he started the company. And he's like, "I never worried, Mike. I knew I could make it work." And then he talked about the next thing that he did, and the next thing that he did. And then he's like, and then he said, when I started IBD, he's like, "I never worried. I just knew that it was going to work out." And he never did worry. Like, he was always very cautious with his money. So the firm wouldn't take out debt, or if they did, it was very minor, very, very little. And he was very frugal with stuff. Like, when I drive with him, he would, drive in his old Land Cruiser that, barely ran, because he would forget to get oil changes and things like that. and he just didn't care about things. He lived, for the longest time, he lived in like a teardown in a, I mean, on a beautiful piece of property, but he just didn't care. Like it just wasn't like, he would rather be more conservative with his own money, and he didn't have to show off anything. I mean, he was the best around, like there was Livermore than Bill in my book. And, you know, so he didn't care about that stuff. There was no like, none of that stuff going on. And so he just didn't worry, and he told me, he's like, you don't worry. And I remember him saying, he's like, you're going to have things happen, you got to learn that, they're going to choke on a quarter, and you got to know how to get that quarter out, the whole Heimlich and everything. I don't know what the quarter came from. Maybe one of his kids did that, but it was just nonchalant, and it really eased my mind, And so if you can ease and another thing is like, if you see someone who's worried, like if you can figure out a way to ease their mind, like help a brother or sister out, like, and so that helped a lot. And then when my kids were born, man, I mean, that was life changing. Like the moment they were born, it was like there's before and after. My son was born at 4:19 in the morning, my daughter at 4:20, and at 4:19 when he was born, like life will never be the same as before, and it's so much better. It's like the best thing. So that was Bill with his worrying thing. So where was it going to go from there? Oh, okay. So I guess I'm gonna tell the story. So try not to be emotional, but it is what it is. You talk about things you haven't really talked about and you put it out there. It is, it's a little scary. So fast forward through, and I'll tell a little funny one first. Is so now I had this ritual every workshop. I would prepare and everything, and but then this one workshop. Oh, I have it out. I wasn't planning on sharing this, but this was it was this one. I think it was it was this master's program, and that would have been 2018, and hopefully this is. And I was working on this. I was knee deep in this original research. This I should do do one of these on this. This is. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. This came out of some real deep thought and original research. And what it was is this is the Dow over 100 years using a quarterly chart. And I recognized this pattern that you had like a range bound type of market. Then you would have a bubble market. Then you would have a disaster, what I coined a disaster and recovery phase. Then you'd have a major bull market. Then you circle back into a range bound. Then you have a major bull market, then a bubble, and so on. And it would circle through. And it was my just looking at things from an objective way of just staring at a wall chart for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and days, just looking at a wall chart, trying to say, okay, if I've never seen anything, what do I see here? And that's the way you should look at a chart. It's just like be completely objective, and like you've never read a trading book or whatever. It's like, what do your eyes see? And then all of a sudden it just jumped out at me. I was like, oh, wow, this, and this. And I was so pumped on this. And then I found a bunch of cool things with it, and actionable things. That was the most fun, I'd had with research in such a long time. And I was knee deep into this. And we were coming up on the level 4 workshop, the master's program. And those were so much fun. They were in Santa Monica. It was a 2-day thing. Bill would talk each morning, and then we would all have different segments, and they were kind of high end stuff. And it was like $8 to $10,000 or something like that for the weekend for folks. And so, lots of the people just kept coming back each year, and it became kind of like I wasn't good with names, but I would recognize faces and stories and stuff. And I miss those people tremendously, and just so many nice people. But we would do these, and you had to be on your game, because we're all like kind of competing with each other, because you wanted to have the best presentation, right? And sometimes it would just be like on what the topic is. Like if I'm doing watch list management, which is what I did, um, with the most unsexy topic ever, but probably the most important one, frankly, because it's your actual routine. So I would do that. So I would be, like, that's hard to make it sexy. Or sometimes I'd do like post analysis. Like, who wants to do that? It's like, that's boring, but super important. So, anyways, so I was doing this one. I was super excited. I was supposed to do some other topic. And I'm like, no, I really want to do this one. And then I had this time crunch that I had to get done. So everything else in life had to fall by the wayside. And I had tons of things going on in my personal life, and that had to go by the wayside. My trading had to, everything. And, I had a weight problem at the time. And so, which becomes important. In the weight, I'm going to do something on that, and because health is very important to me at this point, and it wasn't something I had focused on um, until 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I'm started March 2nd, so I'll tell that story. It's important. March 2nd, 2023, and well, I'll just tell you, like, since that day, I haven't had a drink of alcohol, haven't had any Diet Coke and any, orange juice, gluten, anything fun, really. I looked at everything that was impacting my life in a negative way. And, that's a topic for another day, but a big topic. And I think it'll help people. But cold turkey that day, that I just wanted to be around for my kids and do everything I could. So that's the journey that I be on. So, anyways, so my weight is been piling on because I'm just working on this thing, and I'm just I've got blood sugar issues. So it's like just eat, blood sugar goes down, got to eat some more, and all this stuff, and Diet Coke nonstop, and then alcohol to try to get to sleep at night. Not because I was going out partying, but just really as a way of self medicating, so I could get up and do it again the next day. It wasn't like, oh, Mike wants to go to the bar and drink. It was like, no, Mike wants to fall asleep so he can work some more the next day. It's stupid. So anyways, stopped all that in March 2nd, but this is 2018. And this is in December, and I'm getting ready for the workshop, working on this thing. Just like, it's one thing figuring something out, but then figuring out how to teach something with a timed thing. The time is very important. Like this, I can just, whatever it is. But with that, it was like, I have, an hour and a half on stage, and I got to get through this. And so I'm getting ready for this. And at the time, I'm having some serious vocal problems. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's weighing on my mind. But really, I hadn't done any of my prep that I would normally do. I have all my suits ready, all my shirts, my shoes, and at this point, it was up in Santa Monica, so we could drive up there, and so I could take a whole suitcase with me and not worry. So I'd always have backups of everything, and I didn't have that ready. And my better half kept saying, Mike, you better try on a suit. It was sort of a nice way of saying, you put on some weight. And I had these things called my fat suits for, like, when my weight would fluctuate. I'm like, oh, I always have my fat suit I could fit into. So it's so this is Saturday, Sunday workshop, and we go up there on Fridays. So it's Wednesday, and she's like, Mike, you really need a haircut. Like, this stuff wouldn't fly there. And, you really need a haircut, and you need to get your suit. And so I'm finally like, okay, I'll try on my suit. I try on my suit, and it's nowhere near fitting. And I tried my next suit, up a little bit size bigger. It's not fitting. And then I'm like, okay, I'll have to break out the fat suits. I had 2 fat suits. Those I can't. All of a sudden, now the panic level, it was just like the shoes, like my feet falling through the shoes, like that panic level. So I'd gotten this comfort level with speaking, because I knew that, I think I did a fairly good job speaking and everything. And so I was just all wrapped up into this research, not thinking about, like, anything else. So I'm like, oh shit, it's Wednesday. So I'm on the phone with every place, calling Macy's and this and that and the other thing, saying, I need to get, 2 to 3 suits. and I need to get them altered by Friday morning because then I was going to go up to Santa Monica. And they're laughing at me like, no, we could get it done in like 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm like going through every place, like Men's Warehouse, Joseph A. Bank, you know, cheap, expensive, everything. And no one has, because this is right before Christmas time. So, they're all booked with dresses and things like that. And so I finally find this cheap ass place, that were selling to basically people in the hood that need suits for various reasons. And I go into this place and I'm like, I'm begging them, and they're like, yeah, we have someone who could alter that. And so this is Wednesday night. And so I go in and I get the nicest suits I can get from this place, and they were the cheapest looking suits you can imagine. Um, and I get those, and they're like, okay, I'm telling the guy like I'm going to be on stage, blah blah blah, I need to get these altered. He's like, yeah, no, no problem, and he does it, and I feel comfortable, and so I leave him. That's Wednesday night. And Thursday, she's like, you can, I was growing my hair out because I wanted it, like more like Gordon Gekko, from Wall Street. And even though he's a bad guy, that's kind of what I was wanting to go for. And so I'd been growing out the top from a very short. And so like this top part was very long. And anyways, I'm like, okay, and there was a Supercuts that was the only place that was open that I could get into, that I had time to, and it was right by my kid's school. And so I go in there with my daughter and my better half. And I remember I'm wearing a Bob Marley t-shirt, if you can see it up there. I got a little Bob Marley up there, probably hard to see. But I'm wearing a Bob Marley t-shirt, it's normal. And I go in there, and this girl is going to cut my hair. The first thing she does is she's like, right on, she fist bumps me. And she's like, love Bob, Bob's great. And I'm like, cool, but I'm like, all is well. And she's like, I'll be back in 5 minutes, and then I'll cut your hair. She leaves normal. She comes back high as a kite. Like, and I don't think it was pot. Like, I think it was like whatever it was. She was, and I'm like, oh shit, man, I got to get my hair cut. This is like, I've gone months and months and months. I can't go to a workshop with Bill and, with my hair like this. So I'm like, gotta stick it out, even though she seems a little off. And, my daughter and better half are there, kind of just, we're the only people in this place, and they're talking to her, and she's talking to them, and all of a sudden I see this big chunk of hair, like this long, because like it was like this stuff, like that she cut it to like here, and I see it fall down, and then it falls on me, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And I look up at her, and she tries to play it off because she's high as a freaking kite, and I'm like, like, how's this going to work? So long story short, she gives me the mullet of all mullets. Like, if you know what a mullet is, like go, but if you don't know what a mullet is, like look at, just look online from someone from the 80s or something, where your hair is super short up here and super long. Like it would be like this long, but like short up on top, like ridiculous, ridiculous. So now I'm going, it's Thursday night. I still got to work on this presentation. I've got this horrible haircut. I can't, I can't not, I don't have time to go to get my haircut any other place. Like, screw it, And then the next day on the way up to Santa Monica, I go and I pick up the suits, and they're like, oh, do you want to try them on? I'm like, I've had so many suits altered over the years. I've never had problems. I'm like, I need to get up because I need to practice this. I'm all focused on this thing. And so anyways, the next morning is like a revisit of Dallas. I go to put on my suit, and first I'm thoroughly embarrassed of my hair, I mean, and I had coworkers just laughing at me, and I would have laughed at me too. They're like, dude, what is going on with you? Like, and I'm like, and I tell them the story, and they're like, oh my God. And so, and I've got these cheap suits, so I'm super embarrassed. And these are, people can pay, 8, 10 grand you're like, you can tell the difference between a nice suit and a cheap suit. And I'm embarrassed about that. But then I go and put on my suit. I kid you not. One leg is like this much longer. I still to this day, and I have the suit somewhere, I think I do, like this much longer than the other one. Like one's a high water and one is too long. It's like they didn't cut the one, but still did like the crease at the bottom and cut the other one like 2 inches too high. And I'm like, what the hell am I? I've got to give this presentation of my lifetime. It's one of my favorite presentations, and I've got this. Plus, I've got this voice thing that I've got going on, and it just made me realize, And the moral of this is never get comfortable. Like, have a fear. You should have a fear and a healthy sense of fear. So, and worry, if you want to use that word in this case, is like, okay, well, what if I don't get my uh, try on my suit until 2 weeks before the workshop? Well, I'll probably still be okay. But what if I don't do it until the Wednesday before a workshop? You got problems, right? So this is just, I'm just passing this on for my kids and grandkids, for you guys, of like, if you've got something, like prepare ahead of time. You don't have to be as over the board as I was back in Dallas, but, prepare for things, because then your level of fear won't be there. So this was the first time I, was, really scared again, like going up on stage. Now, the next thing, and this is where it's kind of personal, is that I was having vocal cord problems, and I didn't know what the vocal cord problem was at that point. This was 2018, and it had really been happening since probably around 2015 or so. And I had developed this thing where it was very hard to understand me, but I wasn't clued in on how hard it was to understand me. And I'd be on the phone with people, and they'd be like, Mike, could you re-say that? Everyone was very nice at first, like, could you say that again? I can't really understand you. But then my voice would get worse and worse and worse. If you've heard Robert Kennedy Jr. speak, that's what my voice was like. We have what turns out to be the same issue, but it could get really bad. And so I was worried about that. But it would come and go, like, for no good reason. And I'd have people at work, that I would work with, say, really mean things to me, like, Mike, or no, that wasn't Bill, but Bill never talked about my voice, but other people say, Mike, why do you always sound like you need to go to the bathroom, or, all sorts of really mean and cruel things, frankly, about my voice. And it was really hard, to say the least. Anytime I was in a PM meeting or something, I had to talk to the group, like, my voice would go, and it wouldn't be because I was nervous, it would be because I was nervous about my voice cracking, and indeed it would be very hard to understand. So I'm worried that here I've got this presentation of my lifetime to give, and with all this original research, and I'm worried my voice is going to go. And sure enough, I get up on stage, 2 minutes into it, my voice is gone, and I'm like, I'm stuck up on stage, man. I've got a Billy Ray Cyrus haircut, if he's the guy who had the mullet. I've got the cheapest suit in the world with one leg longer than the other one, and my voice is cracking. I'm like, I just felt like I was that guy at Salt Creek, on his surfboard, trying to paddle in as quickly as he could so that the shark didn't get him. And I made it through, and boy, that was a hard one. So fast forward a couple years, I left IBD in 2020 to come out here to Austin to work as the head PM at a family office. I've since, basically about a year ago, I came back to IBD, and I'll get into that why probably on future ones, because this is so long. But anyways, while time went on, my voice kept getting worse and worse, to the point where I could not talk. When I would have to go to, when we would go out to eat, I'd have to have my better half, I'd tell her, like, hey, this is what I want, and she would have to order, or anything from the wait staff. Um, and That was hard, man. So I couldn't say my phone number. I could not say my phone number where you could understand it. So when I'd get when my phone would ring, I would freak out because I'd be like, maybe it was my boss or something. I would have to talk, and I wouldn't know if my voice was going to be okay or not. Because sometimes it was just fine, and other times it was like unintelligible, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. And I'm not a big fan of doctors, or wasn't at the time. And so it was finally like, okay, time to go to the doctor for this, because this has been going on at that point a long time, 5-6 years. And so I go to the doctor, and then they send me here and send me there, and they're trying to figure out this stuff. And I finally go to this neurologist, and and he does all these tests for me for like I don't know, long old time, and we have this big old talk, and he's basically like, not good, like he's like, we need to do an MRI of your brain, but basically letting me know, like, at best I had MS, and worse, it was like not good. So I'm dealing with that, not really talking to people about it, because I don't want to stress out the family and stuff. And so now I'm going to have to do this MRI. And if you recall at the beginning, if anyone's even still listening, I said I was claustrophobic, and so now I'm going to have to go in this brain MRI, and this guy has me freaked out beyond belief. And so the moral of the story is, like, now I'm going to go into the brain MRI, and I just told them, I've just been honest with the people. I'm like, I am scared to death about being in a enclosed space, and I'm scared to death about not being able to move. And so not being able to move in an enclosed space is about as bad as life can get. Like, I seriously, easily would have rather gone in the water with the shark. No, like, no question, right? Not even a question. Like, that's the level of fear. And so I, just tell them when I'm scheduling it, they're like, oh, no problem. We'll just give you some Xanax or something. I'm like, oh, so sometimes if you're fearful, of things, and this is the moral of that part of the story, is like, if you're fearful of something, ask for help. If you're scared, if you're dealing with something, like, there are people around that can help you out. And, don't keep things in to yourself. Just, you reach out to, whether it's strangers or your family or whatever, and they can help. And so they gave it to me. And, like, when I went in there, they gave me, I'd never, had whatever, what did I say, Xanax or something. I never had that or whatever. And so, I took it, and then, I'm like, I need as much as possible. And they're like, this is way too much. And then I talked to, the neurologist. I'm like, or that's who I talked to. I was like, you have no idea the level of fear. He's like, okay, I'm going to give you this, but don't take it all unless you absolutely need it. And I'm like, screw it, so I took it. So I, like, made friends with all the people at the MRI place. I was happy as could be, because I was on all this, all these drugs, and it went through. And then, so we took it. And so this whole time I'm like, basically thinking it was a mental death sentence, which is another reason why I'm doing this, is because and having been around people, with Alzheimer's and dementia and things, you really realize that you can be alive, but you might not be together. And so I figured this is a time to do this while, um, you know, put this series on, and hopefully this series goes on for a long time. But anyways, so I was scared to death that I'm basically getting this. This guy was sure that I had this one thing, and I don't remember what it was called. I kind of blocked it out, like, kind of mental death sentence, not physical but mental. And then he's like, I came back, and he's like, no, it wasn't that, blah, blah, blah. So then, went through a whole nother round of doctors, and then they found out it was spasmodic dysphonia, which was, no one really knows the cause of it. The same thing that as a vocal cord disorder. So your vocal cords don't act right. And so the way they were able to treat it is, every 3 months I get a injection in to my vocal cords. They have to stick a scope down and look and get it exactly right. And they've had to get the doses exactly right. And I had to do months and months of speech therapy just so I could talk. Because I mean, I couldn't communicate, and this wasn't being scared to talk, because I would practice on my drive to work every day, just talking to Siri on my phone, or at home talking to Alexa, and just asking a question when no one was around, and asking things that wouldn't even be anything to worry about, like what's the weather, like what's the time or whatever. My voice would crack, so there wasn't anything about being, there wasn't sure, like if I was nervous, it would be worse, more likely to be worse. But sometimes I would be very nervous about something and my voice would be fine. Other times it would be bad. And it just kept getting to a point where like I would just get in my car, go to work, hope that my boss and and coworkers, lots of it was done through like Slack or Teams or something like that, so like DMs and stuff, and try to talk as little as possible because it was thoroughly embarrassing. um, and lived like like another reason why I'm doing these and why I came back to IBD was I wanted to be able to communicate again once I was able to get through this. And so I had months and months of speech therapy, and my speech therapist was a wonderful lady, and I just broke down. Just, just broke down the first time I could say my phone number. Sounds silly, but being able to say your phone number and having people understand it, man. You take things for granted in life, and so we got through that. And so if you notice that, like I breathe and stuff and take deep breaths, and sorry, I'm getting emotional, but don't talk about this much. But um, when oh, just one sec. Sorry about that. I had to pause it. Yeah, I did. Well, this is probably why I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to put this out anyways, even though it's freaking as embarrassing as can be. Crying about not being able to say your phone number, but you worry in life about like eyesight, ears, and limbs, and mental things, but you never think. I never thought like I could never talk. So I found it pretty ironic that here my whole life until Bill forced me to talk, I wouldn't talk in public. Then I finally got over that. Then this thing came where I couldn't talk anymore because this other thing that happened, and it still happens, and especially if it's a time in between the 3 months or whatever, it'll still crack at times, and it has nothing to do with subject matter or whatever. It can still be just whatever. I'm just talking about music or talking to Alexa or Siri, asking questions. My voice cracks, and so I have to breathe in, certain things when you hear it, So if my breathing is annoying to you, it's 10 times annoying to me. But it is what it is. So the point is, if you're going through trouble or something physically, like go to the doctor sooner rather than later and figure things out. And and as it turns out, from what they've been able to figure out, it's I suffer from PTSD and from some things that I'm not going to talk about, but uh, that happened around that time, and that's what created that issue. But I'm on the other side of that, and I'm talking as why I'm not shutting up, because when you couldn't, and all you dreamt about is like, wow, I wish I would have um, done certain I wasn't thinking podcasts back then, but just taught certain things, or I was thought, oh, it'd be fun to be like a professor, like on the side, at a college or junior college or something, and just teach some classes on investing. But then I was gone. Like all I could do is like, okay, well, at least I could still trade. I could be in my office by myself and trade. But then once I got to the other side, and really after um, Bill's passing, um, May 28th of 23, it really, I knew it was time. I needed to come back and try to continue on my part of his legacy. Obviously, there's only one Bill, but I'm trying to give back everything I can. Financially, it would make more sense to just do still be a fund manager or something, but then it wasn't really didn't lend itself to um, doing this type of stuff. So I hope that opening up is going to motivate some people that if you have any issues or whatever, like reach out and get some help. Go to your doctors, go to your friends, get over those fears that you had, because I put a tweet out not too long ago. It was like fear looks so much smaller in the rear view mirror than it does in front of you. And I don't know if I borrowed that quote from someone. I didn't see it anywhere, but it just came to me one day. It's like, you're looking forward, right? In this fear, this of whatever it is, a shark, heights, claustrophobia, speaking in public, or you name it. I saw in everyone's tweets all those things that you're scared of, and all legitimate. And break it down. Like, is there anything you can do about it? Is it worry? Is it something irrational, or is it rational? If it's rational, like, what can you do? Like, what I did is prepared for everything, but know that no matter how much you prepare, you can still get thrown that curveball, like my shoes falling off, right? um, or my stupid haircut, and my my bad suits and stuff. Like, things can still happen. And life is going to be okay, because as long as you don't die, man, um, you can get to the other side of stuff. I'm just trying to think if there's um, anything else that I'm sure there were a million things that I wanted to um, say. I just jotted a couple just words down to myself, which was how I used to do things. This is the first time I've ever, screw it. I've been doing these this long without looking at notes. Uh, if there's something else to be said, I will say it on the next one. So I, if anyone, if even one person watched this, um, uh, thank you. And I appreciate you spending the time, and trust me, I'll do, I'll only do these every once in a while that aren't stock related. Because I know your time is valuable, and could probably have been edited down to 10 minutes. So thank you for your patience and kindness. And the one last thing is, um, I've had a lot of mean people that I've dealt with in life, a lot of evil people, and like pure evil, and just selfish people as well. And you could look at it and either just say, okay, I'm going to take advantage of people when I can, or I'm going to be mean when I can, or I could just be kind, because someone's got to change things, right? Because otherwise things just keep going on in a circle. You see it around, around the world, without getting into stuff, that, like, people, fighting for centuries and longer over the same things, because no one can just stand up and be kind first, because being kind in a lot of ways is thought of as a weakness, but it's really, if you can be kind, even to people who don't deserve it, is that a weakness? I don't think so. So, I saw this shirt at the gym, this Be Kind shirt, maybe a year or so ago, and I'm like, I've got to find that. And I asked the guy where he got it from, and here I'm going to share this. Let's see. This is where I got this. I'm not affiliated with them at all. It's TVP is the easiest way. The TV project, and they sell a lot of cool stuff. That I've got some of their other things, and quality things at a fair price, and they're a lot of their profits go to help um, wounded vets, or really a lot of it is vets that have passed, and helping out their families, and they'll go to their house and give them a plaque and stuff, and help in all sorts of ways. And so I always am appreciative, with my father having been in the military, in the Marines for 20 years, and living on Marine bases growing up. That's who I really relate to. Frankly, I should have joined the Marines, and I regret that. But you know, you never know. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about. Is what the shirt says, and be kind on the front. And I just thought, like, I saw that guy at the gym, and like, I need that. Absolutely need that. So this is my favorite shirt. So no talking stocks, and no talking music today. So that's what we had for you today. So I have a feeling that there's not going to be a single view on this one, but at least my kids and grandkids will have this for whenever. And if anyone watches, I hope it helped you out. And I will do. Let me know what other ones you want me to do going forward. I was thinking about. I created a lot of things, but I think the next thing I'm going to do is why I created the 3 month RS and the 6 month RS, which you can find in Market Surge, the reasoning behind it and how to use it, what it is, what it isn't. I was thinking that would be the next one to do, but if there's something, eventually I'll do more on follow throughs, more on the 21 day on individual stocks and a lot of other things. But I think that would be make the most sense for next time. But let me know, send something and share this with people. I really want, maybe not necessarily this episode, if unless you think could help people, but all of these, because I'm putting this out there, and really could be charging. Not for this one. I think people would charge me not to do this one, but could be charging a lot for this stuff, and I'm just trying to help folks. So I want this to get out to as many people as possible, and just to try to help. So share and all that good stuff, and peace out, and be kind.